America's pastime is baseball, and its future is looking bright. Today, we talk with Ben Casparius, a fireballing right-hander who broke records on his way to becoming one of the newest members of the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. He teaches us what it means to rise to the occasion in one of the most watched moments in all of professional sports. From Ballard Studios in Washington, D.C., it's 13th and Park.
You and I can differ, but that doesn't mean you and I cannot be friends.
That often is missing in politics.
We went from North Korea to Eminem. That's a lot, man.
Aliens could have invaded and nothing would surprise me at this point.
It's a nightmare.
Those are the facts.
We have to solve everything.
What's in this tea?
Well, Ben, it's great to see you this way as opposed to what I was viewing not so long ago as was the rest of the World Series. What a moment that must have been like, because you had just come up from the minors not long before then. What was that like? Can you kind of go back to that moment when you took the field for the first time?
It was incredible, getting out there in front of 50,000 plus people and just going out there, doing my job and handing the ball to the next guy. That's what it's all about. And it was one of the best opportunities. And, being able to play in Yankee Stadium and Met Stadium and everything, and being from Connecticut, seeing all my friends and family come out to games, right, especially in the playoffs, it was a dream come true.
You got to be thinking at some point, how cool would it be to one day get to the major leagues, much less play at Yankee Stadium, much less play at Yankee Stadium in the World Series, right?
No doubt. I think it made it more special, and just in the fact that I was a diehard Red Sox fan growing up. So,
oh wow,
maybe a little extra motivation to beat the Yanks in the World Series. But just being in that stadium and all the history, and obviously two heavyweight titans going at it, East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah,
it was a picture perfect World Series in terms of marketing for MLB, and I think it gained a lot of traction, and it was a lot of fun.
Let's go back a little bit in your life. In high school, you won the honor of having the state record for the most hits. You go from there to one of my favorite universities in America, the University of North Carolina. And there you were actually at one point a two-way player. It's almost like Shohei Ohtani, right? So when did you choose up between being a pitcher and being an everyday player?
Yeah, so I think in terms of my role at UNC, I feel like I was more just being plugged into certain positions. We went to the College World Series my freshman year. I just think the transition into pitching was, I don't know if it was necessarily forced, but I think the traction I was getting from big league scouts, scouting directors, the common theme was, we like this guy as a pitcher. Like, he's raw, he throws pretty hard. I think being a good athlete helped with that transition and just being able to move optimally on the mound. For me, I think UConn was the best decision I've made in my career in terms of, I'm going through this kind of like career change and putting all the eggs in the pitching basket. Right. And I just I feel like I thrived at UConn. They understood kind of where I was coming from and the perspective that this is going to look a lot different for me in my day to day and how I'm training. And I took the opportunity. I was really fortunate to stay healthy my entire redshirt junior year. And, I got the call on draft day, and it was special.
Okay, draft day. You're talking about one of the most storied franchises in all professional sport. It's the fifth round, and you get the call that you're being drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers. What did that feel like?
It was pretty cool. I mean, I had gotten some calls earlier on in the draft that were for a little bit below slot money, which I didn't necessarily feel it was the best fit. And I mean, it happens in less than 2 minutes. You get a call either from their scouting director, I get a call from my agent saying, they're going to pick you here and this and that. And, being told, hey, the Dodgers want to take you right here. And this is, there's probably a minute and 30 seconds or a minute left on the clock before their pick is in. So it's like immediate transactional. And, it was incredible. It was one of the best days I've had with my family. My grandparents were there. I got to enjoy it for 3 or 4 days, and it was right into minicamp in Arizona. So it was a really special moment.
Well, going through your minor league career, so you head to the minor leagues and you have these teams with wonderful names, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, the Great Lakes Loons, the Tulsa Drillers. I love the names of the teams, much less how they play. What is life in the minor leagues like? What is it like day to day?
I think the best way to explain it is everything obviously in the big leagues is glorified. You're, taking care of. The facilities are grade A across the board. Minor league baseball, it's not glorified. And it's tough, I think, at times for guys to be able to get the work in that they want to get in day to day when the facilities aren't necessarily the best or this or that. It's still baseball. You're in the clubhouse with all your buddies, like you're having a good time. And at the end of the day, we're heading to a baseball field for work every single day. So it's pretty awesome.
So I'm thinking about the movie Moneyball, where you get the call that they want to bring you up. How was that when you were in the minor leagues and suddenly it was the one call that you were looking forward to join the major league team?
I had a pretty unique first day in the big leagues, I would say. So we were in Las Vegas playing the A's AAA team. Our manager, and it was the top of the second inning, he pulls me over. And this was usually transactions happen after the big league game is over. So they had finished their game a little bit before we started our game in Vegas. I'm obviously not pitching that day. I'm just in the dugout. And the manager pulls me over. He's like, "Hey kid, you're going to the big leagues. You know, you're going to get picked up at this and this time. Your flight's here." And I didn't sleep a second. I did not sleep a second. I got picked up from the airport, I think at 3:30 in the morning. My flight was at 5 and we had a day game in St. Louis at 1. I think I was on maybe 30 minutes of sleep at the absolute most. And I've never felt more energetic in my entire life. Like, it was incredible. I didn't pitch that day, but just to be able to experience that and kind of just meet some guys, like match some faces to names. I feel like it was yesterday too. And I was lucky enough, my parents came out for that trip too. So I was able to tell them in person, which was pretty cool.
Do you remember any of the veteran players that did the proverbial arm over the shoulder, welcome to the club, that kind of thing?
No doubt. I spent the majority of my time with the relievers and the guys in the bullpen. So that's kind of who I got closest with, I would say. Joe Kelly, Evan Phillips, even guys like Kike were great when I got there. Miguel Rojas, Mookie, all these guys, like, they were taking me under their wing. They'd been in my shoes before, knowing what it's like to either debut or be up with the big league team for the first time. So I felt like I was right at home.
We all wonder as fans, when you're a relief pitcher, you're in the bullpen, right? What do you guys talk about out there? You got 9 innings or more to shoot the breeze.
I think everything, honestly. We're cracking jokes the whole time down there. Everybody's trying to keep it loose, keep it fun. And it was just an unbelievable group of guys, just from, a million different backgrounds. My whole career has been as a starter. So being put into the bullpen kind of changes my routine.
Right.
But I thought the support down there and everybody knowing that it was like fairly new to me, I thought, I was guided by the right guys. I think they helped me with that transition really well.
The first time that Robert signaled for you, the manager, that's a moment, right? You're warming up and suddenly, bang. And, you did obviously pitch in the National League Championship Series game brilliantly, I may say. I think the scoreline was 4 1/3 innings, no runs, etc. Great start. That must have been a heady moment, much less before you get to the World Series.
Yep.
You're now in a game where the consequence is immediate and obvious and huge. How do you kind of keep yourself centered?
I think in general, the mind shift in this year changed, where I feel like I prepare really well throughout the week. And when I get out on the mound, I just kind of need to let go and just go compete and let my body take over. I don't need to think too much, this or that. And honestly, the NLCS games, the World Series games, I just treated it as if it was any other game. And I think I do a good job of just being able to tunnel out the energy in the stands, like how many people are there, and just focus on, the task at hand and being able to just go out there and compete and do the best I can.
It seems like baseball players today, Ben, are fitter than ever. Performance management has become a big concept in sport in terms of the workouts, in terms of the diet. Is that something that is different and at a higher level or a different level when you get to the majors versus the minors?
One of the biggest reasons guys are big leaguers is because of their routine. So I think as you go up the ladder, you're not really searching for what works anymore. I think you kind of know, if I lift on these days, I'm going to feel good. If I eat at these times, if I sleep during this time, if I get my treatment when I need to. I think that's the biggest part, is just knowing yourself. And once you do that, everything kind of is in place, and it's going to give you the best chance to be consistent over a course of a season.
Usually it seems that when a player goes from the minors to the majors, they end up developing at least another pitch or two. So what pitches were like your money pitches coming out of the minor leagues? And what have you started to work on in the majors to kind of add to your repertoire?
I think the best way to go about it is, when I got drafted, it was primarily fastball, slider, changeup. And then obviously the mechanical changes we were working on to help benefit the fastball velocity, the slider shape, everything in that way kind of took away from the changeup a little bit, where I started feeling like I had to manipulate my arm slot for it to move a certain way or this or that. It wasn't as comfortable as it had been throwing from a lower arm slot. And I think going forward, the curveball was a really good add to my pitch mix. The cutter I started throwing at the back end of this year as well. And then a 2-seam fastball too for righties, just to show something kind of coming into their body. So it's an evolutionary thing where it's every year you're, tweaking something or your usage for certain pitches going up or down. And it's just kind of trying to find that sweet spot. And then I think one of the biggest things too is kind of letting the hitters tell you what's good and what's not. So if I'm throwing too many sliders a certain day, are they starting to sit on that? Am I throwing too many fastballs in the strike zone that are getting hit? And it's, you kind of are given information based off of what hitters are doing against you and kind of how they're game planning against you.
Are you getting tips all the way, not just from the pitching coach, but also from the other pitchers on the club?
For sure. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I had was just the guidance I had. It was just their mindset going into a game in certain situations. If I'm talking to a starter, what are they trying to do the first time through the order, or are they trying to save anything? And then as a reliever, for the most part, guys are going out there to get 3 outs and call it a day. So you're staying more with your strong suits and kind of your own attack plan. But I think it mixes and matches, and you kind of figure out quickly what works in certain roles.
So it wasn't long ago that we had Hall of Famer Johnny Bench on the show. And I remember how incredibly proud he was and remains of the game. Do you feel it's kind of an honor to be a part of Major League Baseball at this level?
No doubt. I think especially too, like putting on a Dodger jersey every single day and representing the city of LA, representing all of the people that came before us that have created so much history and just making the game special and being able to look back on all the unbelievable moments. It's cool to be a part of. And I think the game's in a really good spot right now. I thought the pitch clock was a really good addition in terms of keeping fans engaged. And I think the game will continue to grow and people love it.
If you could face any batter in baseball history, who would that be?
Probably Babe Ruth, just because when you think of baseball and you think of baseball history, I think his name is probably the top of that list, and just be able to see how good he was, Do
you have any advice for a young baseball player who's dreaming of the kinds of moments that you've already experienced in your career? What would you tell them today?
The biggest thing is just don't lose passion for the game. Don't take a single second on the field for granted. I think that's a really big thing too, because it can get taken away from you so quickly. Don't set limitations. Don't have negative thoughts. Like your self-talk has to be good all the time. You have to tell yourself you're the best player on the field. And so I think it really just comes from your self-talk and within, and just, having a passion for what you do.
I remember the press conference or the media interviews after the game. You were front and center in a number of those. It's a difficult time, right? Because it was game 4. The Dodgers had carried the first 3. They didn't quite prevail in game 4 at Yankee Stadium, of all things. Right. And you're having to field the questions, right? How difficult is that when you're kind of on the spot and you wish it were on the spot at a time of triumph versus, a time that's, you might say, is one of challenge?
There's a lot that goes into a game day. You know what I mean? Like we have media in our locker room from 3 p.m. until the end of the game when everybody's coming in to do interviews and kind of just pick our brains after games. And as a starter too, you have your start day routine. So for me, if I'm starting to kind of get going 2 hours before the game, this or that. And I think just constantly reminding myself, I was given this opportunity. I thought that I earned the opportunity, and they had enough trust in me to go out there and start the game. And that's something super special. And I treated it like any other game where I'm given this opportunity, just go out there and do it. You don't think too much, don't put too much into it, this or that. But it was a special moment walking on the field to start that game.
So any pitcher that you have as a role model, maybe not necessarily for the way you pitch now, but for the things they brought to the mound?
I think one guy who I resonate a lot with is Walker Buehler. We kind of have a similar pitch mix, pretty much similar velo range in terms of how hard we're throwing each pitch. And I just love that guy's mentality. Like he goes out there, it doesn't matter if he's doing well or if he's not, he's the same guy. He's one of the most competitive people I've ever met. And watching him go through 2 Tommy John surgeries and come back and do what he did in the playoffs after a year where he was still trying to get the rust off and find it, that was really big for me. And just being able to see this is the mindset right here. This is the guy, he's going to turn it on when the lights come on. It was just a special time to watch, somebody who's been so great in this game for a long time, just go out there and do it in multiple different roles.
How's it like playing for the manager, Roberts? He seems really kind of cool and seems to have a good feel for the players around him.
I think as a manager, that's probably the biggest, most important thing is just the way he interacts with the players. He knows I could talk to this guy about this, or maybe I'll leave this guy alone today because he's pitching this and that. So I think just in terms of feel, he kind of checks every box, and he's just one of the greatest dudes I've been around in the game. And he's been on obviously a lot of really good teams, like the 2004 Red Sox team that came back and won. He's just an unbelievable guy. I think everybody would say that.
Well, Ben, I can tell you you're a part of one of the greatest games on earth. I've been a fan of baseball, as so many have for my entire lifetime. I wish you well in the season ahead, and that you continue to become, as you are, you probably don't realize this, you're already a role model for a lot of young players who are looking up at the stars saying, maybe, just maybe, I could be like Ben.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care of yourself.